Hello and welcome to Ready, Set, Thrive. In this video, we are going to talk about how you can get more from your chiropractic care here at Thrive Chiropractic and Wellness. If you've already had your discovery assessment, you know me. And if you're watching this video before your discovery exam, my name is Dr. Brooke Silberhorn, and I am the owner and chiropractor here at Thrive Chiropractic. I'm going to share a little bit about myself and about my personal chiropractic story and healing journey in the first few slides before we get to the meat of this video. First, I absolutely love learning. It's one of my highest values, and I love sharing what I learn with others. Watch for more videos from me or check out our YouTube channel. Get some of the knowledge and wisdom that I've learned over the years and have passed along to you and anyone that I can talk to. I actually have been seeing a chiropractor myself since I was 6 years old. I'm going to share so much more of that story on the next slide, but suffice it to say, I love chiropractic and the impact that it has had in my own life and health. I graduated from chiropractic college in 2006 and have been practicing ever since. My family and I actually moved to Ocala in 2015, and I opened Thrive Chiropractic in late 2015. So we've been around a little while, and the last thing that I'll share is that I am also an author. Again, I love helping people and being a guide in their personal healing journey. And I share my own lessons of healing in the book, The Way to Wholeness, where I share my story of healing from thyroid cancer and all of the things that I learned throughout that journey. So how did I become a chiropractor? Like I said, I've been getting adjusted since I was the age of 6. And there's two things that I'll point out about that. Yes, it was uncommon back then for people to see the chiropractor. I actually remember being a teenager and my dad saying, "Don't tell people we all go to the chiropractor because they just don't understand." What I know now is that I really wish I had been adjusted from the point of birth, because what I learned in chiropractic college and what I typically share on the first visit, the discovery exam, is that the first trauma that you have to your spine and your nervous system is when you are born, which was what happened in my case. But the reason that chiropractic actually started in my family started with my dad. He was playing football as a junior higher, and he got hit in the middle of his back. He actually was struggling to breathe. And while my grandma thought, oh, he must have consumption, my grandpa said, "Why don't you just take him to the chiropractor?" So that's what they did. And my dad could breathe better and move better. And he felt better after he was adjusted by a chiropractor. So that started my family's path of receiving chiropractic care. Before I started getting adjusted, I remember going to the chiropractor and watching my parents get adjusted. I even remember the chiropractor in my hometown for a period of time had a table that would lift people up after their adjustment to standing position. And he would actually let us ride down and then ride back up, even though we weren't getting adjusted. Now, I wish that I had been adjusted earlier in my life. And that is because when I was born, the doctors had to use forceps to reposition my head in order for me to not come out with a broken nose, more trauma to my head and my face. But again, what we learn in chiropractic college is that the first trauma any baby experiences is at birth. A normal, uncomplicated birth, there's 80% chance of injury and 10% chance of death just from the natural forces that are put on the head and neck. So I know without a doubt some of the symptoms that I have experienced in my life started at that point in time. I also, at the age of 1, took a walker down a flight of stairs, and while the walker stayed upright most of the way down, when it hit the last step, it flipped, and I landed on the concrete basement floor on my head and neck. So I've had early trauma in my life to my spine and my nerve system. And because of that, I have experienced pretty severe headaches as well as chronic ear infections as a child. As you can see from the picture on the bottom left, I didn't have perfect health as a child. And we are told, oh, that's just common, that's just normal. But I also know that a contributing factor to how severe some things were that I dealt with was because of that early trauma to my head and neck. The last thing that I'll share is that, yes, I started getting adjusted at the age of 6. And that was really because when my mom was pregnant with my younger brother, they changed chiropractors. She needed a chiropractor that had a table that actually could hold a pregnant woman's belly safely. When my brother was born, he had baby acne. And Dr. Avens, our family chiropractor, basically said to my mom, hey, listen, if you get him adjusted, his body will start functioning better and will clear that baby acne up really quick. So my mom said, okay, and had him get adjusted and his skin cleared up beautifully. And it was at that point that the rest of us all started getting adjusted. So my family kind of treated chiropractic like any other healthcare practitioner. We would see the chiropractor when we were sick. We would see the chiropractor when we were hurting or injured. We sort of did a little bit of what could be called maintenance care, where we tried to go regularly, but it wasn't what I would consider wellness care, because usually we were coming in for a symptom rather than, hey, I just want to make sure that everything is functioning optimally. I have a fond memory of my dad in the middle of a blizzard calling Dr. Aben and saying, hey, have you had any cancellations? Do you have openings that we can come in and get adjusted? So my family were the crazy ones that would drive half an hour through a blizzard to go to the chiropractor instead of canceling our appointment because the weather was bad. My dad even loaded us all up into his work utility bucket truck one time to get to the chiropractor during a blizzard, which is a fond memory. And also I think, wow, what commitment. Again, these are the things that shaped my story. I decided that I wanted to be a chiropractor when I was about 7th or 8th grade. I remember looking at a poster on the wall in Dr. Aben's adjusting room and seeing the connection between the vertebrae and the nervous system, the nerves that go out to all of the other organs in the body, and how if there's a disconnect between that nervous system and the body, then that can lead to different symptoms that we experience in our life. And I just thought, oh my gosh, what power in that you can influence how the body is functioning just through a chiropractic adjustment. The last piece of my story that I'm going to share right now is that even as a high schooler and a college student, I didn't fully grasp the impact that chiropractic had in whole health. Like, I understood it, but it was still very symptom based. And I still saw chiropractors even when I was away at college. I was a cheerleader and I had girls fall on my head a few times. What is funny is later in life, when I was in chiropractic college, I sometimes would forget that I had even had these traumatic experiences that impacted my health and my nervous system function. I forgot I was in a car accident. I forgot that I had girls fall on my head in cheerleading. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that all of the people that I see in my office sometimes will forget some of the things that they have experienced in their life that are actually impacting how their body is functioning. The first lesson that I want to share with you is that you have a cycle that works between your brain and your body. I alluded to it just a minute ago, talking about that chart that showed the connection points. But that brain-body cycle is so key to understanding how your body functions and what can impact your body's health and well-being. So a normal brain-body cycle is almost like a closed safety pin. You have your brain and your nerve system on one end, and then the nerves are the connection point down to the other end, which is the body and the organs, tissues, and cells. And then the nerves going back to the body are the other side. And as long as that safety pin stays closed, everything functions normally. Your brain and your body are communicating with each other. One of the things that we know about the nervous system is that the purpose of the brain and nervous system is to control and coordinate the function of everything else in your body. Every cell, every tissue, every organ, and every organ system. And to also adapt your body to the environment, to help your body adapt and deal with what it's perceiving in the environment outside of you and the environment inside of you. When we have a normal brain-body cycle, there are a few things that we will see happen. We will actually see connection. So there's connection between the brain and the body. That leads to better function, optimal function. That leads to ease in your nervous system. And that eventually leads to health and wholeness. So when everything is connected and communicating with each other, there's ease in your system, your body's functioning optimally, and you will express health. Unfortunately, unless you live on a luxurious desert island where you have no cares in the world, there's no need for finances because everything is covered, and you have people waiting on you hand and foot, you will have life demands. Now, some of those life demands may be considered what we call stress. In chiropractic, for many, many years, we have talked about 3 types of stress. And I'm going to add a 4th, but those 3 primary types of stress are what we call 3 T's. Thoughts, also known as mental stress, trauma or physical stress, toxins or chemical stress. And then the 4th one that we're going to add in is technology, because listen, we live in a tech-driven world, but that also can be a source of stress in our life. And I want you to think about some of the stresses that you actually encounter in your day-to-day life. And sometimes you can deal with it and other times you can't. But what will happen is that when we have stress, like we get in a fight with our spouse, we have to deal with getting our kids off to the bus. Maybe they missed the bus, so now you have to rush and drive them to school. You're dealing with employees and managers, and sometimes you get in a car accident and you have all of these things that eventually it just is too much for your body to handle. Your cup overflows with stress. And your body just says, I've had enough. When your body does that, it is kind of like flipping the switch of a breaker. Basically, your body just says, enough, and there's a shift that happens. And that is what we as chiropractors call a subluxation. A subluxation is basically a disconnection. Sometimes it will show up just on the nervous system level. Sometimes we'll see alignment challenges in the vertebrae. We'll see tension in the muscles, inflammation around the nerve root. There's a complex of things that can happen when we have subluxation, because your body just says, hey, I can't adapt anymore to all of this stress that you're experiencing. But what that leads to is a break in that safety pin, no longer connection between the brain and the body. And what that leads to is that there's lack of communication between the brain and the body. That leads to dysfunction in the body. That dysfunction, nothing's working right anymore, leads to dis-ease in your body. So there's no longer a sense of ease and well-being in your body. And then that eventually leads to illness. Now, illness doesn't necessarily always equate to symptoms. Sometimes symptoms can actually be a sign of health and well-being. And I'm going to share 2 things with you to drive home this point. In 2014, like I already told you, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I did have one symptom that I could discern, and that was I had some enlargement of my thyroid, but my labs were normal. I didn't really have signs of dysfunction that I was aware of in my body, but I had cancer. I had processes of dis-ease and dysfunction and illness going on in my body, even though I did not really express symptoms. The opposite end of the spectrum is when a person eats tainted food. Maybe you go out to a restaurant and you eat food that had, let's say, salmonella poisoning, or it wasn't properly cooked. If you throw up, yes, that is a symptom, but your body is expressing a symptom of health. It is responding to the fact that it needs to get rid of that toxin from your body. So we can't always equate illness and symptoms in the same boat, because sometimes symptoms are an expression of health. So the end of this first lesson is that a healthy nervous system leads to a healthy you. Just as a reminder, when we have subluxation that is causing disconnection between the brain and the body, there will be dysfunction, dis-ease, and eventually illness in the body. When we have a normal brain-body cycle, there is optimal function, ease, and health in the body. So that is the foundation that we are working off of. The goal of your care in the office is that we are restoring normal connection between the brain and the body, which will then facilitate your body self-healing, self-correcting, and self-regulating so that there's ease, function, and health in your body. As a reminder, in your discovery exam, how we assess the function of the nervous system is primarily through the 3 scans that we did: the thermal, the surface EMG, and the heart rate variability. And those combined will give us a picture of how you're starting out. And then eventually, after 12 visits, we will do a progress assessment, and that will tell us the progress that we're making. Sometimes we have to actually see a little bit of a backwards trend in your nervous system function before we start to see improvement. And the reason that happens is that your nervous system is really good at just maintaining a status quo and thinking that everything is just hunky-dory. It's all good. But the reality is, when we start restoring connection within the nervous system, then scans sometimes can look worse because your body is now aware of all of the things that are going on that are signs of dis-ease and dysfunction in the body. So our next lesson is the importance of teaching versus telling. Now, you probably have all heard the analogy: give a man a fish, you feed him for a day; teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. I like another analogy, and that is, you can go your whole life and tie your kids' shoelaces, but it is a whole lot easier to eventually teach them how to tie their own shoelaces for themselves, because it makes your life a whole lot easier. And this is really what we are doing in our office, specifically with Network Spinal Chiropractic Care. Network Spinal is a specific form of chiropractic that doesn't just have the goal of fixing the problem, adjusting a subluxation to get rid of symptoms. Our goal is actually to teach your body how to adapt to and deal with life. Your body is designed for health, function, and it has certain rhythms built into it that facilitate that healing. And sometimes, because of the amount of stress that we just face over the course of our lifetime, it's almost like our body just forgets. So Network Spinal is actually kind of tapping your nervous system on the shoulder and saying, hey, wake up, pay attention, do this, because you know that you can, you know that you're capable of healing and functioning optimally. And that is the goal of Network Spinal. It's not for me to fix you, but for me to show your body, hey, you are capable of fixing yourself. So sometimes you may feel things on the table when I'm adjusting you, and sometimes you may notice shifts and changes hours or even days later. And it's not necessarily because I provided some miracle to your life. It's actually just because I woke up your body's greatness. Okay, lesson 3. This is really where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, because I am going to do my very best for you to be a guide and help you through your healing journey. And if you are still eating crappy food and living a stressed out life and not hydrating well, smoking, drink, all of those things, all the negative habits that maybe you currently have in your life will be fighting an uphill battle. We'll find difficulty in really seeing optimal health and well-being in your nervous system and in your life. So we're going to talk about what I call flourishing foundations. They are just the foundational healthy habits that will support your care in this office. The first is nervous system. That's at the center. Obviously, this is where I come into play, but then there are also things that you can do at home that will support the connection that we achieve in the nervous system through the adjustment. There are things that you can do at home to support that and help maintain it. If the nervous system is not functioning optimally, all of the other healthy things that you choose to do in your life will not be as effective. So that's why that is first and foremost on the list. Then we have your mind. We're going to talk about mindfulness, what you ingest and absorb, how you move your body, and the importance of community. Doing things to impact your thoughts and emotion will support nervous system connection and regulation. There's so many options out there for creating mindfulness, but some of the things that I have found incredibly effective are journaling, meditation, and breath work. We're going to talk a little bit more about breath work, but some of the things that I like to suggest with journaling is in the morning and in the evening. Now, I will admit, I'm not good about evening journaling, so I usually do my evening questions before I start my morning journal for the next day. But I'm working on it. Progress over perfection, I say. But to start out in the morning journal, what am I looking forward to today? And in the evening, you can journal, what am I proud of? And just those two, I mean, it literally takes 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening. That's all you need to do. It's a great way to start your day and to end your day. Some tips for meditation. Meditation is not really about having nothing in your mind, because you're going to have thoughts come and go, but it's actually allowing those thoughts to just pass. It's actually active work to quiet your mind, but that is a really great way. One of the apps that I really enjoy that is helpful is called the Insight Timer app, and there are guided meditations in it and different music that you can just play during your meditation if you want to do it on your own without guidance. Also, for the ladies, I actually created 4 meditations that coincide with the 4 phases of your menstrual cycle. And if you are interested in that, it is at my Dr. Brooke Silberhorn YouTube channel, a playlist on the Thrive Chiropractic YouTube channel. The last thing is breath work. And I have created an entire course, so to speak, of breath work that was created specifically by Dr. Donnie Epstein, who also created network spinal chiropractic technique. He created this breath work called somatorespiratory integration, and it is designed to go through 12 stages of healing and support what we're doing in network spinal care. As a active practice member who has gone through or is going through a care plan, if you are actively under care, you actually have access to this course, which is really exciting. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The next flourishing foundation is focusing on what you ingest or absorb. This is supporting nervous system function, but then also supporting your body on a cellular level so that you have appropriate energy for heat. Some of the things that you can look at and focus on include the food, obviously, your water intake, air, but also your skincare and the products that you use in your house. Those are actually 2 of the biggest sources of toxins that we are exposed to in our life. Again, if you're thinking back to our life demands or stresses, the 3 T's, toxins is one of them. And skincare and cleaning makeup are really big ones. Important to note about food is that starting simple is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do. Simply eat real food. Find something that works for you. It has taken me a really long time to actually find what works for me best. When I was diagnosed, I chose to do a healing protocol called Gerson therapy, which involved a lot of juicing. And my mind has changed around that a little bit. I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing, but there is a reason why I've shifted away from that. I reason why I've shifted away from that. I now am personally carnivore. So I primarily eat animal-based foods, meat, or some dairy, and that's about it. And I actually am healthier than I've ever been. So again, I'll do a separate video on that. But if you focus on eating real food, staying away from the processed foods, staying away from lots of sugar, staying away from food dyes and all of those chemical toxins that we find in processed foods, making sure that you are hydrating well. There's so many different ways of looking at hydration. Some people say that half of your body weight in ounces is how much water you should take in. But the thing that I find actually more important than the number is that you are getting what is called fourth phase water or gel water, which you can create in two different ways. So when we were in school, we learned that water has three phases: solid, which is ice; liquid, which is liquid water; and then gas, which is steam or evaporation. A scientist discovered that there's a fourth phase, and that fourth phase of water is actually created when we add electrolytes to our water. So you can add salts. You can also do like a little bit of lemon juice or lime juice. Some people, when they put fruit in their water, it also facilitates that gel water creation. So that actually helps your body to absorb the water better and supports better hydration than if you're just drinking plain water. I have a whole video on YouTube that talks more about it. I basically gave you the quick synopsis, but that's the most important thing. I really love electrolytes and pretty much don't drink water without it at all. Skincare and the cleaning products. There's so many different options out there that are definitely better. I have used Norwex microfiber cloths for cleaning. I also like the cleaning solution through doTERRA or Young Living essential oils. They're pretty similar, and I've used both, and they're both great. So those are some of the suggestions that I have. And if you have more questions about that, I definitely can have a conversation with you. But I do also like to empower you to do your own research and find what works best for you. With movement, you will support your nervous system function and having more energy for healing through moving your body. Now, there's a couple things that I'll point out. Rest and recovery cycles are super important. You can't just force your body into moving every day intensely all the time. That will lead to burnout. It will lead to injury. It will set you back. For women specifically, moving your body based on where you're at in your menstrual cycle is incredibly important. And if you don't have a menstrual cycle due to pregnancy, hysterectomy, or menopause, actually following the phases of the moon is another helpful way of staying in that cyclical living. Again, I have whole videos that talk all about this. So if you want more information, you can definitely ask for those videos and I'll make sure that you get them. The last thing about movement that I think is incredibly important is that gross motor movements, so big movements that you would do with lifting weights or running or things like that, those actually facilitate your brain function on a cognitive level. Fine motor movements like journaling, so using your hands to journal, actually helps with the nervous system on the emotional level. So putting pen to paper is incredibly important form of movement that helps your nervous system process emotions better. Again, movement is a key part of your healing journey. I don't ever like to really restrict people from moving because I think that unless you can't walk, moving your body is going to facilitate better function and recovery in the long term. And finally, community. Again, there is a lot to be said about how being in community actually creates larger impact in your overall health and well-being. And we can look back 4 years of the recording of this video to 2020 and see how not being in community was detrimental to people's health. So you'll find in our office that first we adjust in a group setting. Currently, at the time of this recording, there are only 2 tables in one room. Space challenges in the current office. But what we have found is that when people are getting adjusted side by side, the energy that you bring to the room impacts the energy that another person has in the room, and it can help them to up level or vice versa. We call adjustments in network spinal technique and training. And that is because your nervous system is in training to the nervous system of other people and to my nervous system. What happens scientifically, other examples of entrainment include when women's menstrual cycles sync up and they're on the same cycle together, because they're in close proximity. Typically it happens in workplaces and then also in like college dorms where lots of women are in the same community together, their cycles will sync. Another study was actually done, and this isn't even on human beings, but I think it's so cool because it just speaks to energy and vibration. And that is that they did a study on grandfather clocks. They put like a bunch of grandfather clocks in one room, and all the clocks were like tick-tocking at different rates. And then eventually they all started to sync up and ticking and talking at the same pace and rate. And that is an example of entrainment. You will actually get more out of your adjustments if you are in the room with someone else on the table next to you than if you were just there by yourself. So that is the importance of community. Again, when we have events, please come and participate. Bring your friends. You will find greater results when you have a support system that is cheering you on and there for you. A couple other things that we offer in our office that are really helpful for tapping into greater levels of healing and function and health. Remedy testing is a hair analysis that we basically look at your system on an energetic vibrational level. And it helps us find the root cause of your organ function or dysfunction, food and environmental sensitivities, nutrient and hormone imbalances, toxin exposure, as well as the emotional stress patterns that are contributing to dis-ease and dysfunction. In the years that I've been a chiropractor, probably the greatest source of dis-ease and dysfunction in the body is thoughts or mental stress, emotional stress, because I have found that that's the greatest source of dysfunction in the body. Again, I referenced it earlier, but as an active practice member who is going through or has gone through an initial immersion care plan, and once you get into wellness care, you have access to our course, Breathe, Connect, and Thrive. This is basically 12 weeks of breath exercises that move you through 12 stages of healing and wholeness. This facilitates a greater connection between your breath, your body, your nervous system, and I just absolutely love it. Network spinal care really is just the piece that makes everything else that you do, all of the other healthy choices that you make, even stronger and greater. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that it helps you understand the nervous system a little bit more. I hope that it helps you to be empowered in this journey to live your life expecting miracles. I look forward to seeing you the next time, and I hope that you have an amazing day and that you keep thriving.